everybody, welcome back to our YouTube channel on Ancient Greek Koine, AGC. I'm Ashley Sinval, your friend, and I'm well pleased to introduce you today to our second part of our second lesson for this series on the Greek Koine language. In our previous video, we've seen the pronunciation of Greek letters from alpha to omega. We've seen the pronunciation of the 7 diphthongs, Greek diphthongs, and we've also learned the syllabification of Greek words. Today we'll be seeing the accents, the Greek accents, and other phenomena in Greek like apostrophe, diaeresis, and crasis. We're moving closer to our goal, that is to learn how to read, how to pronounce, how to properly pronounce Greek words, how to properly read, Greek Koine. So, without any further ado, let's start our lesson for today. Accents. Let's start with the accents. Well, just like in English, ancient Greek Koine also has accent. An accent is a distinct emphasis given to a syllable in speech by stress or pitch. In any word, like in English, syllables are not pronounced on an equal tone or with an equal tone. There is always one syllable that is pronounced with a higher tone than the others in a word, in a single word, and the syllable is called the accented syllable. In the Greek language, we have written signs, visible signs, that can help us identify the accented syllables, signs that we don't have in English. We have 3 different accents in Greek with 3 different signs: the acute accent, the grave accent, and the circumflex accent. The acute accent is this little sign that leans to the right over the alpha letter. The grave accent is a similar sign but that leans to the left. The circumflex accent is this up and down wave-like sign, over the alpha letter. In Greek language, accent obeys rules. So you cannot put an accent on any syllable in the Greek language. You have to do it according to some rules. We have these main rules that will help us, understand the position of an accent in a Greek word. The first rule is about our first accent, that is the acute accent. And I must tell you that the acute accent is the most versatile accent between these 3 because it's like a default accent that is used as a substitute to any kind of accent in the case that the other accent would not be able to be used. So in these words, we have some examples here. Our first word is kadia. Well, if there was not any accent in this word, we could have pronounced it randomly, like with any tone variation. You could have pronounced it kadia or kadia. Just you could try to pronounce each syllable with the same tone. But once there is this accent here on the last syllable, by the way, I want you to remember the three types of syllables in the Greek language. We've seen in previous lesson that only the last 3 syllables of a Greek word can be accented, and this is our first ruler. Only the last 3 syllables of a word can be accented, and these 3 last syllables have a special name. The last one of them is called ultima. The next to the last is called penult, and the next to the penult is called the antepenult. Well, in the word cardia, the accent falls on which syllable? The penult, the antepenult, or the ultima? The ultima, right? Because that's the last syllable of the word cardia. Cardia has two syllables. Car, dia. Now, the acute accent on the ultima will raise, okay? It will rise the tone of the voice in the pronunciation of the word cardia on this last syllable. So it's gonna be cardia instead of cardia. Okay, instead of just saying cardia, like, or cardia. The accented syllable is the ultima, therefore the higher tone will be on the ultima. Cardia. Now for a second word, which syllable is accented? Where is the accented syllable in this word? Well, it's the red letter here, alpha, because it bears the acute accent again. So it's gonna be hagios. And the same thing in anthropos, it's anthropos. Anthropos. Okay? So I put them in red for you so that you can identify the accented syllables before you get used to it and be able to pronounce any Greek word without variation of color in the letters. Okay, and we have the second ruler. The second ruler is about the grave accent, our second accent. The grave accent can only stand on the ultima, either long or short. While the acute accent can occur over any of the last three syllables of a word, the grave accent is uh, more restricted and can only occur on the ultima, that is the last syllable of a word. Okay, whether this last syllable is long or short. Here we have an example. We have two words, to and yeron. Okay, well, yeron has the acute accent and to has our grave accent. Well, to has only one syllable, so it's not gonna be like ultima or not. So it's just one syllable. It works perfectly. Now let's see our third rule. Our third rule is about the circumflex accent. The circumflex accent can only stand on long syllables. Okay? Can only stand on long syllables on the penult and the ultima. What is happening here is that the more we move downward, the more restricted, okay, it becomes. The acute accent has almost no restriction beside not being able to occur on any syllable that falls before the last three syllables of a word. Like the fourth syllable, you cannot put any accent on that. But the grave accent can only occur on the ultima. It cannot occur on the penult or the antepenult. And the circumflex, the grave accent only on the ultima, but the ultima can be either long or short. But for the circumflex accent, it only occurs on long syllables of the penult or ultima. Like here, we have two words, and we have an important precision. What are long syllables in Greek? Well, long syllables are syllables that are formed by long vowels and are diphthongs, except the diphthongs I, oi when they finish a word. That means any syllable that has a long vowel will be considered as a long syllable. And any syllable that has a diphthong will also be considered as a long syllable. Unless this diphthong is oi, I, or I at the end of a word. When oi and I are at the end of a word, they are considered as short. Okay? They form short syllable. In the word oikos, we have a circumflex accent over the first syllable and the next to the last syllable, that is the penult. And when you look at the syllable, you can see a diphthong, oi. And oi is not at the end of a word, so I can consider the syllable as a long syllable, as a long one. That's why the circumflex accent is possible here. Okay? Now, in the word aute, the accented syllable is the last syllable, the ultima. And I also must tell you that there is no rules. There is no rule that can help you identify which, let's say in every case, that can help you identify which syllable should be accented. For this purpose, you need to know the word. You need to look at the vocabularies. You need to know your vocabularies and know that this word is accented on the last or on the penult or the antepenult. So you need to know the word. Our rules can only help you identifying which accent should be put on the accented syllable, which accent, which sign should be used. Okay. Okay, so for aute, we know, okay, from the lexicon, we know that aute is accented on its last syllable. But which syllable should be used on the ultima? It should be a circumflex. Which accent should be used on the ultima? It should be a circumflex accent. Why? Because the syllable, the accented syllable, is a long one. Okay, so these are the main rulers about accent in Greek, Koine. I want you to go over them slowly and with a lot of attention. Look at the examples, and I put all the accented syllables for you in red. Now we do have some more rules that makes it more, I don't want to say difficult, but that gives you more precision and makes it a little bit trickier. Now there are still three. There are still three of them. The first rule tells us that a long ultima will cause the acute accent on the antepenult. The antepenult is the next to the penult. Let's say it's the third syllable from the last. Okay? Long ultima will cause the acute accent on the antepenult to be drawn to the penult. What does that mean? When looking at the word anthropos, anthropos is normally accented on the antepenult. Okay? So the accented syllable is an in the word anthropos. This ruler tells us that when the ultima of a word that is normally accented on the antepenult is a long syllable, this accent that should have been on the antepenult will be drawn to the penult. That's exactly what happens here. It's the same word with the same root, but in a different case. We'll be seeing this a little bit later in our series with the cases in Greek. Okay, so we have here instead of anthropos, it's anthropus, because the ultima, that was a short syllable here, okay, has become a long one with the diphthong u. That's why the accent is moves on the right, okay, to the penult. Yeah. The second rule tells us that when a long accented penult is followed by a short antepenult, the accent on the penult is a circumflex. Otherwise, it is an acute accent. Okay, this is exactly what happens in the word oikos. In the word oikos, the penult is the accent. It is the accented syllable. But which accent should be used? Here we used the circumflex accent because it's a long syllable, oi, with a diphthong. And oi is not at the end of the word, as we've seen here. But there is another precision that needed to be added. Here, in this form of the word oikos, the circumflex accent is only possible because the ultima is a short syllable. That means that once the ultima becomes a long syllable, the circumflex accent yields to the acute accent, is replaced by the acute accent. Okay, that's the rule. You cannot have in a word both the penult and the ultima long syllables, being long syllables, and a circumflex accent on the penult. That's the rule. But in other cases, if you have like a short, okay, ultima here, it's still possible to have a circumflex accent on the penult. And if the penult is a short syllable, so you'll not be able to use the circumflex accent. That's what it means when it says that otherwise it is an acute accent. So in all other cases, it's going to be an acute accent, except unless the ultima is a short vowel and the penult is a long one. Okay, it's like the ultima, when it is a long vowel, does not agree that the penult bears a circumflex accent in his stead. So it's kind of a jealousy between these Greek syllables. So yeah, that's a way to memorize it. The third rule about accent, that's our last rule. The grave accent replaces the acute on the ultima when it is followed by another word without an intervening punctuation mark, unless the following word is an enclitic. So we're not gonna pay too much attention to this, so don't ask me any question. We will be seeing this later in our series. Now let's focus on the essential part of the rule that tells us that when an acute accent occurs on the last syllable of a word, this acute accent will be replaced by a grave accent if only if, okay, this word is followed by another word without any punctuation mark. Let's say here we have to heron. To heron. To normally bears an acute accent. So what do we have? Why do we have a grave accent here? Well, it's just because it has a following word. There is a following word after to, and there is no punctuation mark that separates them. So the acute accent of to becomes a grave accent. And that's mainly the function of the grave accent. The grave accent replaces the acute accent in this specific case. But once there is a punctuation mark between the two words, the acute accent on the ultima will stay an acute accent. The other case will be when it is followed by an enclitic, but we will see that later in our series. Okay, so that's all for the accents in the Greek language. Make sure you master these 6 rules about Greek accent. These are very important and useful tips to properly choose a Greek accent for an accented syllable. That's very important. Now let's move on to these 3 phenomena in the Greek language. 3 interesting phenomena: the apostrophe, diaeresis, and crasis. Well, apostrophe is kind of similar to the English. Do we have apostrophe in English? Yes, we do, but we don't really use it that much. We mostly have it in other languages like French and other languages. But in Greek, we use it a lot, not too much though. Apostrophe in Greek indicates that a letter at the end of a word has been omitted. Okay? And it's usually a vowel. This often occurs when a word ended in a short vowel is followed by a word beginning with a vowel. And in this case, the last vowel, okay, the ending vowel of the first word undergoes a process called elision. It disappears, it chops off. Like in these 2 words, apo autu. Okay, look at the accents, guys. Look at the accents. It's a complex accent and grave accent because it is followed by another word, but it should have been an acute accent. Okay, well, apo autu is normally written apautu with the omicron that disappears and replaced by this sign that is called the apostrophe. Diaeresis. Diaeresis is like this 2 dots. Okay, it's like this 2 dot sign. Diaeresis is a diacritical mark that stands over the second of 2 vowels standing together in a diphthong pattern to show that they don't form a diphthong and should be pronounced separately. Okay, so when we have 2 vowels that in a normal situation could have been a diphthong, could have formed a diphthong, like alpha iota and like here, alpha iota, but actually they don't because of this sign. So in this case, you have this sign on the second vowel of these 2 vowels that will help you, okay, separate these 2 vowels in their pronunciation. In a normal case, okay, I mean without the diaeresis, this word that means Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, would have been pronounced Isaias and would have had 3 syllables. It would have been Isaias. But because of this diaeresis sign, it will have 4 syllables. A, sa, y, as. Okay? So the y, the iota, stands by itself as a syllable. The last phenomenon for today is the crasis phenomenon. What is the crasis? The crasis is the contraction of vowels or diphthongs at the end of one word and the beginning of another word, okay, that follows this word, causing their merger in a single word. That is what happened to these 2 words, kai, ego. Okay, you see the grave accent that replaces the acute accent here because it is followed by another word. These 2 words, they are 2 different words. Kai means and, ego means I. It's the subject pronoun, first person singular. I. But what usually happens is that these two words combine in one word, in a single word, because of this phenomenon called crasis. And instead of kai ego, we have cargo. So there are some, you will have to, let's say that you will encounter kai ego in many Greek sentences, but you can also encounter this form. And when you say it, remember that it refers to this Greek phenomenon, crasis, and it is equivalent to these two word pattern kai ego. Okay? Very important. So that's all for this lesson on the accents and apostrophe, diaeresis, and crasis. Don't forget to like this video, and if you have enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe. That'll be a good motivation, and you will stay in tune with the other videos, other upcoming videos, and especially the third part of our lesson 2. That will be very interesting. Okay, and I hope you guys had fun with this video, and looking forward to seeing you for lesson 2 part 3. Bye bye.